I want to thank you all again for coming. And to give you a little background on my project, I began this project in 2010 at Cleveland State University to make a website to photograph South Euclid's history at the Cleveland Memory Project. The Cleveland Memory Project is a subdivision of the Special Collections Library at Cleveland State, and they are focused on collecting photographs of the Cleveland area. I, therefore, as a resident of South Euclid, began a project to just document South Euclid's history as a website, but as I saw the history and I started to collect these photographs, I found it amazing, and it's something I'm very glad I can share with you all today. So, to give a little bit more of a history, after the Whittlesea disappeared, the Iroquois took over this area, as Karen Lakus mentioned, and they named it the Black Forest, and they used it for their economic activities. But in 1796, General Moses Cleveland explores the area known as the Western Reserve as a surveyor for the Connecticut Land Company. This area was known as the Western Reserve for the state of Connecticut for settlers from the east to come over here to eventually live at. General Cleveland was sent over to found the capital city of the Western Reserve area and was sent down through the Connecticut River, through the Great Lakes, and through the Cuyahoga River. And this is a picture of the Ernst Prasse basket factory at the corner of Green and Mayfield Roads in 1860. This is the oldest picture of South Euclid that I'm aware of, and the basket factory was one of two main basket factories in the South Euclid area. The other one belonged to Mr. Prasse's brother, Henry Prasse, and these basket factories would produce baskets to contain the produce of the agriculture in this area. This basket factory right here operated between the 1880s through the 1960s. So in the late 1700s, 41 men from Cleveland's scouting party set up camp at Conneaut Creek, while the other part went off to found a community site on the bank of the Cuyahoga River. So part of Moses Cleveland's party split up to scout the area, the other part set up a permanent camp. And if you're wondering about the difference in the name Cleveland as it is today and Cleveland with the A in it, later publications after the city was founded dropped the A and the spelling stuck. So Moses Cleveland's name was spelled as you see it there, but we now know Cleveland without the A. After 18 days, the party who stayed at the Conneaut Creek became disgruntled after the other half of the party did not come back, and they decided to mutiny when they returned because they were not happy. And this is the first South Euclid homecoming in 1888. This was the precursor to our home days of today and one of the first community culture events in this area. And did you know that in the 1840s, we here in South Euclid had our own version of Davy Crockett, a legendary figure named Andrew Ellsworth, who had a very similar lifestyle and was known as a frontiersman and a very rugged individual. And the funny part is, his cabin and where he lived is now right around Green and Anderson Road. Isn't it interesting how history changes? So when General Cleveland's party got back to the camp, they were not happy with Cleveland's half of the party that came back, and the party that stayed here did begin to mutiny. So to rectify the situation, General Cleveland came to an agreement with this other half of the party, and they drew up a geographic area 25 miles wide that became known as Euclid Township, which was incorporated in 1797. These 41 men were able to settle in this township and became the first residents of this area. This is the Ernst Prasse farm right at Belvoir and Mayfield Roads in the late 19th century. This farm is right around where Dunkin' Donuts is today. And interestingly, around the same time, a railway system existed between downtown Cleveland and South Euclid, and cars from the Eastern Railway Company would send transportation vehicles from downtown to this area. These vehicles were so accurate time-wise that you could actually set your watch to them whenever you heard the whistle when they arrived at Sheffield Road. In the early 1800s, the Mayfield and Green Road intersection, which was built on two Iroquois hunting trails, became known as South Euclid to the early settlers as the southern part of the Euclid Township. And this is the South Euclid Blacksmith Shop in 1897. This was located right around where Sheffield Road is today, as well as the intersection with that in Mayfield. And where this is located right now is right around where Geppetto's is. This blacksmith shop was basically the transportation and hardware store for the early settlers. And right near it was the Black Forest Tavern, which is still in operation today. In 1828, Euclid Township subdivides itself into 9 school districts. And the boundaries of these school districts eventually became the boundaries for today's suburbs. So the division of these school districts eventually translate into the boundaries of the cities we see today. This is the Green Road School in South Euclid around 1910. The first school in South Euclid, or in the South Euclid area, was the Old Stone School in the 1800s, which was replaced by the Green Road School a few decades later. This school is located right around where the Mayfield Green intersection is today, very close to where Key Bank is, probably closer to where the Key Bank ATM is today in that parking lot. This school was eventually torn down and replaced by South Euclid High School, which was the short-lived high school for South Euclid that was eventually replaced by Brush. In 1836, the Mormons, led by Brigham Young, passed through South Euclid on their way to Utah. And as they do, they passed down Anderson Road and eventually down Mayfield Road. However, because of the sticky clay on the road, they got stuck on their journey, and it took them a week just to get down the road themselves. The first wagon to get stuck was their wine wagon. This was one of the first elementary school classes in South Euclid in 1910 at the Green Road School. And as I had said, the school was located close to the intersection, but probably around where the ATM is today, as well as closer to Red Hot Cabana. The area where Key Bank is today and that whole storefront was the front yard of the school. In 1867, Duncan McFarland opens the first quarry on the east bank of Euclid Creek. Soon after that, the Maxwell brothers, Robert and John, started their own quarry along 9 Mile Creek, closer to the Quarry Park area. These quarries quarried Euclid bluestone, which was used for sidewalks in downtown Cleveland. And from these quarries eventually came the village of Bluestone, which was a short-lived community in the northern half of South Euclid. This community existed from approximately the 1870s to the early 1910s, and when South Euclid was incorporated as a city in 1917, this village became part of the new village. This is the Telling Brothers Company ice cream wagon around 1900. William Telling was one of the most prominent figures in South Euclid's history, owning the Telling Brothers Company and the Telling Farm where the library is located today. This farm grew strawberries, and William Telling also had an ice cream company and a dairy company. Strawberries were a very important part of South Euclid's early agricultural history, and did you know that in the early 1900s, immigrants from Little Italy used to walk all the way down from downtown to South Euclid every day and work to pick the strawberries and go back home at night, and that was their job. Imagine doing that. Interestingly as well, in the 1860s, a German family named the Schuberts bought a vineyard and an orchard in the area that is now Richmond Heights, or Richmond Mall, right along the Richmond Heights-South Euclid border. This vineyard and these orchards produced a type of grape known as the Euclid grape, which had a very unique flavor to it because of the sticky clay texture in that geographic area, and the wines made from that were sold all throughout the country. So in the mid-1800s, early South Euclid was very frontier-like, with agriculture being the main industry. Because of all the different types of agriculture, you had all the different types of basket factories that arose to contain this produce. This building is currently where Cheek to Cheek dance studio is located, and the picture, as you see here, was taken around where Coffee Fix is today. The Mayfield Green intersection is the heart of South Euclid and pretty much our downtown. In history, structures like town halls, post offices, and a tavern and inn were found right at this intersection. And that tavern and inn used to be known as G.S. Rathbone's Tavern. And this tavern and inn would house travelers going both west and east from Mayfield, and during the weekends, the residents would gather there for entertainment. They would sing, they would dance, and one of the dances they loved was called the Virginia Reel. In 1898, Swedish immigrant quarry workers erected a Lutheran church around present-day Anderson Road. This church was eventually torn down in the 1930s as the metro parks were built. This is an airplane at Ford Road, actually in Lyndhurst, right around where the Valero station is. Ford Road Airport was one of the earliest airports in the northeast Ohio area, and residents would be able to take joy rides on the weekends for a few cents to see the area from a bird's eye view in the early 20th century. The other interesting thing about the intersection at Brainerd and Mayfield is that there used to be the toll gates for Mayfield Road, both on the east and west corners of that intersection for travelers going in both directions. In 1912, South Euclid built a high school at the present site of the Key Bank parking lot on Green Road. At the time, higher education was defined as 9th and 10th grades, and 11th and 12th grades were held at Euclid High School. This is the South Euclid Police Department, Courthouse, Jail, and Municipal Garage in 1928. And this was one of the earliest municipal buildings of the city. Obviously, we have developed our municipal buildings quite a bit. In 1916, the first high school class graduated from South Euclid High School, and the PTA was established. South Euclid High School was later torn down, and Brush High School was built in the early 1920s. On October 13, 1917, the village of South Euclid is officially recognized. South Euclid becomes its own geopolitical entity and an actual community. The reference of the early settlers to the Mayfield Green intersection as South Euclid also became the name of the city, as well as being the name of the village that was there before. This is South Euclid City Hall in 1939. This building was the City Hall in South Euclid until 1954, when a new facility was built. And did you know that the first post office in South Euclid was built in 1881 and has moved several times until it's found its current location on Green Road just south of that intersection? So this is the site of the general store and saloon in the old village of Bluestone, but this picture was actually taken in the 1940s. As I had mentioned, Bluestone was its own separate community in the 1870s that existed until approximately the 1910s, when it was absorbed into the new village of South Euclid. And Core Euclid Bluestone was the main economic activity. And if you still go to the metro parks today, you can still see remnants of that village. In 1920, Euclidville was renamed Lyndhurst, and the reason they renamed it Lyndhurst was because there was already a South Euclid and Euclid, and it was very confusing on the postage stamps and mail systems of the time. And they named it Lyndhurst after Lyndhurst, New Jersey. And it's also very interesting because a lot of roads in South Euclid have interesting etymologies to them. Green Road used to actually be called Telling Road, but because of all the grass growing on it, the early residents just referred to it as the Green Road, after which the name stuck. Liberty Road was named before World War I, and Victory Drive was named after World War I. Beaconwood Avenue was named for the beacon light that existed on that road for airplanes going to Cleveland Airport, and this beacon was on the south side of the road. And this is Mac's Candy Shop in South Euclid, somewhere around the 1940s. The exact location of where this picture was taken is unknown, but it is believed it's around where the funeral home is today on Mayfield. In 1927, the village acquires its first electric traffic light at the intersection of Green and Mayfield Roads. This is a shop class at Brush in 1940. The individual in the center is Mr. Korb, for whom Korb Field is named after. And shop classes were added to Brush High School's curriculum in the 1940s to teach the various trades to the growing number of students in the community. In 1941, South Euclid officially becomes a city. 1944, 400 sons and daughters of South Euclid are sent to war. This is the South Euclid Savings and Loan Company in 1949, and this is where Key Bank is today. And did you know that this company sold thousands of war bonds for World War II in the early 1940s? In 1949, South Euclid's first war memorial is established. In 1954, the new municipal center replaces the old town hall. And this is the new city hall in 1954 with the older one in the front. And interestingly, a year later, Notre Dame College added its first resident hall. In 1965, the South Euclid Police and the Fire Department install new communication equipment around the city. The 1960s were a time of great technological innovation in South Euclid. And this is a police car at Cedar and Warrensville in front of Bart's Flowers. Bart's Flowers is now where CVS is today. And this is an interesting example why I chose the name South Euclid, a city of beauty and contrast, for my website, because you can see the contrast of historical development of what used to be in a location and what is there today. This contrast can be seen all throughout the city, and as you can see, throughout all the photographs in history. In 1966, teacher and sports coach John Welser retires after 45 years of teaching and coaching in the South Euclid-Lyndhurst school system. He began in 1921. John Welser is the individual for whom Welser Gym is named after. And this is the Mayfield and Green intersection in the 1950s. And before Royal Castle, there was a gas station at that corner, and right now there is Coffee Fix. And it's very interesting because you can think of South Euclid in 4 dimensions just by looking at these historical photographs. In 1967, the city celebrates its Golden Jubilee, its 50th anniversary celebration. This was one of the largest events in the community's history, and this event had a parade and a community fair. This is the Quarry Park Pool in South Euclid, right near South Belvoir and Bluestone Roads. And if you go to Quarry Park, you can still see a fireplace that was a remnant from one of the buildings from the village of Bluestone. In 1976, the city joined Lyndhurst in a Star-Spangled Celebration during the National Centennial. This is the Buster Brown shoes on Mayfield Road. Buster Brown was a brand of shoe in the 1960s that's equivalent to Nike today with the same popularity. This shoe store is right near where the computer store and barber shop is today on Mayfield Road. In 1983, the Victory Park school site was sold to Akron's Albrecht Company, parent of Acme Grocery. Acme Grocery was one of the largest supermarkets in Ohio at the time, and the facility that was eventually built here in South Euclid was the largest supermarket in all of Ohio for many years. Right here, you can see the parking lot at Green and Mayfield Roads in South Euclid in 1961. South Euclid added even more parking lots in 1963, and many more structures in the following years at that intersection. In 1985, Acme Grocery opens, as does the South Euclid Community Center. This is a picture of teacher Alfred Ike demonstrating a science experiment in 1961. This photo was taken for the Cleveland Press to showcase Brush High School's new state-of-the-art science wing. Mr. Alfred Ike was also the former president of the South Euclid-Lyndhurst Historical Society. In 1990, a new recycling program was implemented. This is the Wonder Life Home Center in 1965. This was the technological center for all of the new technological developments of the time. And this legacy still continues today at this facility because this is where the Verizon store is. In 1991, John T. Kosovar was elected as mayor. And this is a picture of McDonald's in 1962. And again, with the contrast in history, this is also very close to where G.S. Rathbone's Tavern used to exist in the 1800s. In 1992, Home Days returns to South Euclid. And this is a picture of an electronics class at Brush in 1967. And interestingly, in 1968, Brush adds its first computers for math instruction. In 1994, curbside newspaper recycling began. And in the 1980s, there was a very long period of development and construction in the city of South Euclid. And this right here is the construction of what became the Acme grocery store. And another area where there was a large amount of urban development was the southwest corner of Mayfield and Green, which had unified concrete and brick structures on it, overhangs, and lighting. In 1995, Mayor Kosovar wins re-election. And here's another picture of the development of what became Acme Grocery Store and is now Giant Eagle. In 1996, redevelopment took place in the Green Road Commercial District and in the Mayfield Business District. And this picture right here is where Taco Bell is today. 1997, the city celebrates its 80th anniversary. And here's another picture of what is today Taco Bell. In November 2003, Georgine Wheelow is elected as the city's first female mayor. So the other interesting thing about the time when Acme was built in the 1980s was that it was also a time of great educational reform in the South Euclid school system, and in a few years later, the South Euclid school system added new math programs for getting students on track in the math field, specifically with more specified Algebra 1 course. In 2007, the city of South Euclid celebrates its 90th anniversary. This picture is taken where the Lone Max is today. In 2007, Georgine Wheelow is elected to her second term as mayor. And this is a picture of the Monticello Road Bridge plaque. And if you ever have a chance to take a walk, I'd suggest taking a walk and taking a look at this plaque, because you also get a beautiful view of the Euclid Creek area. In 2008, the Playground of Possibilities is constructed by volunteers at Bexley Park, but is destroyed by fire in 2010. It was then rebuilt in the spring of 2011. And here's another view of the Monticello Bridge, but from this time from the park.